Hello there, and welcome to Bible's Sleepy Stories. Tonight, we're going to journey together through one of the most beautiful and comforting passages in all of Scripture. It's a psalm that has brought peace to countless souls across thousands of years. A song that ancient pilgrims sang as they made their way to Jerusalem, and a promise that continues to speak to our deepest needs today. We're going to rest in the words of Psalm 121, a gentle reminder that we are not alone, that we are watched over, that we are kept. So before we begin, I invite you to settle deeply into this moment. Let your body sink into the softness beneath you. Feel the weight of your head on your pillow. Notice the gentle rise and fall of your breath. There's nowhere else you need to be right now. Nothing else requires your attention. This is your time to rest, to listen, to let go of the day's concerns, and simply be still in the presence of the one who never sleeps, never slumbers, never looks away. Take a deep breath in through your nose, hold it for just a moment, and then release it slowly through your mouth, and again, breathing in peace, breathing out worry, breathing in trust, breathing out fear. Let each breath carry you deeper into rest, deeper into this sacred space where you can simply receive the ancient words of comfort that have sustained God's people through every generation. Tonight's journey will take us through Psalm 121, verse by verse, word by precious word. But more than that, we're going to walk the dusty roads that ancient pilgrims walked. We're going to feel the sun on our faces and see the hills rising in the distance. We're going to understand what it meant for travelers in the ancient world to lift their eyes and ask that eternal question, where does my help come from? And we're going to hear again and again that beautiful, reassuring answer, my help comes from the Lord. The Song of the Pilgrims. Imagine, if you will, the ancient land of Israel in the time when the temple still stood in Jerusalem. The rhythm of life was marked not just by days and weeks, but by the great festivals that called God's people to come together, to remember, to celebrate, to worship. 3 times each year, faithful families would prepare for the journey to the holy city. These weren't casual day trips. For many, these were journeys of many days, even weeks, walking across challenging terrain, traveling through wilderness and over rocky hills. The festivals were woven into the very fabric of Israelite life. In the spring came Passover, the feast of unleavened bread, when they would remember the great Exodus, when God had brought their ancestors out of slavery in Egypt with a mighty hand and an outstretched arm. 7 weeks later came Shavuot, the Feast of Weeks, celebrating the wheat harvest, and later understood as commemorating the giving of the Torah at Mount Sinai. And in the autumn, as the final fruits were gathered, came Sukkot, the Feast of Tabernacles or booths, when families would build temporary shelters and remember the wilderness wanderings, when their ancestors had lived in tents and God had been their constant companion. These weren't solitary journeys. Families travelled together. Extended clans joined one another on the roads. Friends who hadn't seen each other since the last festival would meet up along the way. And the journey itself became a time of fellowship, of sharing stories, of strengthening the bonds of community. Children walked alongside their parents, learning the ancient songs, hearing again the stories of their people, beginning to understand what it meant to be part of God's chosen nation. And they sang as they travelled. Oh, how they sang! There was a special collection of songs. Psalms numbered 120 through 134 that were known as the Songs of Ascent. These 15 psalms were the soundtrack of pilgrimage. They spoke of longing for God's house, of trust in His protection, of the joy of dwelling in His presence. They were songs that helped pass the miles, that lifted spirits when the journey grew weary, that reminded travellers why they were making this trek. Picture a family preparing for their pilgrimage. Perhaps it was the week before Passover, and the spring rains had just ended. The father would check their provisions, making sure they had enough bread, dried fruit, perhaps some cheese, water skins filled to the brim. The mother would have been preparing special foods for the journey, foods that would travel well and sustain them on the road. The children would be buzzing with excitement, asking questions about Jerusalem, about the temple, about what they would see and do. In the days before departure, neighbours who would be travelling together would meet to coordinate their plans. Safety in numbers was not just a saying, but a practical necessity. A large group of travellers was less likely to be attacked by bandits than a family travelling alone. They could pool resources, share the burden of supplies, help each other over difficult stretches of the road. And there was joy in the companionship, in the shared purpose, in being part of something larger than any single family. The morning of departure would come early. Before the sun rose, families would be gathering at the edge of town, loading their donkeys if they had them, checking one last time that they had everything they needed. And then, as the first light touched the eastern sky, they would set out, beginning their journey with prayers and songs. The pace would be deliberate, steady. They couldn't rush because they had children and elderly relatives in the group. They had to move at a speed that the slowest could maintain. But that wasn't a burden. It was part of the rhythm of pilgrimage. This wasn't about getting there as quickly as possible. It was about the journey itself, about the transformation that happened on the road, about becoming pilgrims together. As they walked, they would sing. One person might start a psalm, and others would join in. The words were familiar, beloved, worn smooth by generations of use. Psalm 122. I was glad when they said to me, "Let us go to the house of the Lord." Psalm 126. When the Lord restored the fortunes of Zion, we were like those who dream. Psalm 133. Behold, how good and pleasant it is when brothers dwell together in unity. These songs weren't just entertainment, they were teaching tools, passing down the faith from one generation to the next. They were bonding agents, creating unity among the travelers. They were worship, lifting hearts and minds to God, even on the dusty road. And they were memory aids, helping people remember the great acts of God, the promises He had made, the character He had revealed. The children would learn the songs by heart, hearing them verse by verse, day by day. By the time they were grown and making their own pilgrimages, they would carry these psalms in their hearts, ready to teach them to their own children. This is how the faith was transmitted, how the stories were preserved, how each generation came to know the God of their fathers. At night, when they stopped to rest, the families would camp together. If they were near a settlement, they might find hospitality in the homes of fellow Israelites who lived along the pilgrimage routes. It was considered a sacred duty to welcome pilgrims, to give them food and shelter, to send them on their way refreshed, but often they would be between towns, camping under the stars, gathering around fires for warmth and light. Those evening camps were special times. The urgency of travel had eased for the day. Feet could rest, tired muscles could relax, and in the gathering darkness, stories would be told. The older people would share memories of previous pilgrimages, of the wonders they had seen in Jerusalem, of the awesome experience of being in the temple. They would tell the ancient stories of Israel's history, of Abraham and Moses and David, helping the children understand who they were and why this journey mattered. And then, before sleep, they would pray. They would thank God for bringing them safely through another day. They would ask for His continued protection through the night. And often they would sing Psalm 121. I lift up my eyes to the hills. From where does my help come? Even in the darkness, even when they couldn't see the hills around them, they knew the hills were there. And they knew their help came from the Lord, who was watching over them even as they slept. Ascent is the perfect word, because Jerusalem sits on a hill, elevated above the surrounding landscape. From wherever you came, you were going up. From the Jordan Valley, you would climb nearly 4,000 feet. From the coastal plains, you would wind your way through the foothills and then up into the mountains of Judea. From the south, from places like Beersheba and Hebron, you would journey northward and upward. The closer you came to the holy city, the more the landscape rose. No matter your starting point, you were ascending to Jerusalem, going up to the place where God had chosen to dwell among His people. The journey through ancient Israel. Let's pause for a moment and really try to see this journey, to feel it, to understand what it was like for these ancient travelers. The landscape of Israel is remarkably diverse for such a small land. There are lush valleys where springs water the ground and green things grow abundantly. There are terraced hillsides where generations of farmers have coaxed olive trees and grapevines from the rocky soil. There are rolling hills covered with wildflowers in the spring, painting the brown earth with splashes of red poppies and purple thistles and golden mustard flowers. But there is also wilderness. The eastern side of the Judean mountains, sloping down toward the Dead Sea and the Jordan Valley, is a place of stark, austere beauty. This is the Judean wilderness, a realm of chalky white stone and deep ravines, where water is scarce and the sun beats down with relentless intensity. It's a place where only the hardy can survive, where Bedouin shepherds guide their flocks to patches of sparse grass, where caves honeycomb the cliffs and offer shelter from both heat and enemies for pilgrims travelling from the east, perhaps coming from Jericho or from across the Jordan. This wilderness was the path they had to take. The road from Jericho to Jerusalem was notorious. It wound through the Wadi Kelt, a deep gorge that cut through the wilderness. The path was narrow in places, hemmed in by cliffs on either side. It rose steeply, climbing from below sea level at Jericho to over 2,000 feet above sea level at Jerusalem. It was a journey of perhaps 18 miles, but those were hard miles. Miles that could take a full day of steady walking. And it was dangerous. Those deep ravines and hidden caves provided perfect hiding places for bandits and thieves. A group of travellers laden with offerings for the temple, or perhaps with goods to trade in Jerusalem, made tempting targets. Even centuries later, Jesus would tell a parable about this very road, about a man who fell among robbers and was left beaten and half dead on the way from Jerusalem to Jericho. His hearers would have nodded knowingly. They all knew that road. They all knew its dangers. But the danger wasn't only from human threats. The sun in that wilderness could be brutal. There was little shade, few trees to offer relief from the heat. Water sources were sparse. A traveller who wasn't prepared, who ran out of water, or who couldn't find the next spring, could find themselves in serious trouble. Dehydration, heat stroke, exhaustion. These were real and present dangers on the ancient roads. Let's pause and truly imagine what this journey felt like. Close your eyes for a moment and picture yourself as one of these ancient pilgrims. You've been walking since dawn, and now the sun is high in the sky. You can feel its weight on your shoulders, like an actual physical presence pressing down on you. The heat radiates not just from above, but from the stones beneath your feet, from the white, chalky rocks that line the path. Your mouth is dry, despite the water you've drunk from your water skin. which is now significantly lighter than it was this morning, reminding you how much you've consumed and how carefully you need to ration what remains. Your feet are dusty, coated with the fine powder that the road throws up with each step. You can taste dust in your mouth, feel it gritty between your teeth. Your clothes are damp with sweat, clinging uncomfortably. The straps of your pack have been digging into your shoulders for hours, and you've shifted them so many times trying to find a comfortable position that your shoulders are sore from the constant adjustment. You look ahead and see the path winding up another slope, always another hill, always another climb. Your legs are heavy, protesting each upward step. The younger people in your group seem to have boundless energy, practically bounding up the inclines, but you're not as young as you once were, and every ascent takes more effort than the last. But you're not just feeling discomfort, there's beauty too, as the afternoon wanes and the sun begins its descent toward the western horizon. The harsh white glare of midday softens. The rocks that seemed almost painfully bright now glow with warmer tones, gold and amber and rose. Shadows lengthen, creating pockets of blessed relief from the direct sun. The temperature, which at midday felt oppressive, begins to ease towards something more bearable, and the landscape, for all its harshness, has a stark, austere beauty. The hills roll away in waves of stone, layer upon layer of ancient rock shaped by wind and water over countless millennia. Here and there, a stubborn tree or shrub clings to life in a crevice where a little soil has accumulated, its roots finding moisture deep in the rock. During the brief spring season, wildflowers might splash colour across the browns and greys, surprising, delicate beauty in this unforgiving place. The wildlife too is part of the landscape, though much of it stays hidden during the heat of the day. You might see a lizard darting across the path, disappearing into a crack between rocks. Birds circle overhead, hawks or vultures riding the thermal currents, their sharp eyes scanning the ground far below. At dusk and dawn, you might catch a glimpse of larger animals, a fox perhaps, or if you're very fortunate and very careful, one of the ibex that are so perfectly adapted to this rocky terrain, leaping from ledge to ledge with impossible grace. And always there's the awareness of what this land has been, who has walked here before. David fled through these hills when Saul pursued him. Prophets like Elijah travelled these paths. Every stone, every valley, every spring has stories that go back generations, centuries, millennia. You're not just travelling through space, you're travelling through time, walking where your ancestors walked, following paths worn by countless feet over countless years. As evening approaches, you and your fellow travellers begin watching for a suitable place to camp. You need level ground, if possible, and some protection from the wind. A water source nearby would be ideal, though you may have to settle for what's in your water skins, and you need the camp to be in a place where you can post watches, where approaching danger could be spotted before it was upon you. When you finally stop for the day, when you can finally take off your pack and sit down on a stone and take a long drink of water, there's a profound sense of relief and gratitude. You made it through another day. The miles that seemed so daunting this morning have been covered. The hills that loomed ahead have been climbed and are now behind you. And you're one day closer to Jerusalem, one day closer to standing in the temple courts and lifting your voice in praise to God. And then there were the hills themselves. Even on safer roads, even when traveling through settled areas, the terrain was challenging. Israel is a land of mountains and valleys. The roads didn't run straight and flat. They wound up hillsides, following ancient paths worn by countless feet. They dipped into valleys where seasonal streams ran in the winter, but lay dry and dusty in the summer. They climbed over ridges, always another hill, another ascent, another challenge for weary legs and aching feet. The hills could be deceptive too. From a distance, they might look welcoming, their slopes catching the light, their peaks seeming to beckon. But they could also hide dangers. In times of conflict, opposing armies might control the heights. In times of peace, still the hills could harbour wild animals, wolves, even leopards in those days. And always there was the simple, physical challenge, the need to keep going, to keep climbing, to reach the destination before darkness fell and made travel even more treacherous. Lifting eyes to the hills. And so we come to the opening words of Psalm 121, words that would have resonated deeply with every traveller on those ancient roads. I will lift up my eyes to the hills. From where comes my help? Picture a pilgrim, perhaps a father with his family, making this journey to Jerusalem. They've been walking for hours, perhaps for days. The road stretches ahead and behind. The sun is climbing in the sky, or perhaps beginning its descent toward the western horizon. The children are tired. The provisions are running low. Every muscle aches from the constant walking, the constant climbing. And the pilgrim looks up, lifts his eyes from the path immediately before his feet, from the small circle of concern about the next step and the next, looks up to the hills ahead, the hills that still must be crossed, the hills that hide both promise and potential danger, the hills that mark the way to Jerusalem, but also represent the challenges still to come. From where comes my help? It's such a human question, isn't it? Such a universal cry of the heart. We all reach those moments when we look at the road ahead, at the obstacles we face, at the mountains we must climb, and we wonder, how am I going to make it? Where will I find the strength? Who will help me? For the ancient pilgrim, this question had layers of meaning. On the surface, it was practical. Would there be help on the journey? Would fellow travelers offer assistance if needed? Would there be water at the next stop? Would the road be safe? But the question went deeper. In the ancient world, hills and high places were often associated with worship. Unfortunately, not all of that worship was directed toward the one true God. Pagan shrines dotted the hills of Canaan, the high places that the prophets so often condemned were hilltop sites where false gods were worshipped. So when a traveller looked to the hills and asked, "From where comes my help?" there was an implicit question underneath. Would help come from these hills with their false shrines, from these locations of misplaced worship? Or consider another layer. The hills themselves in ancient Near Eastern thought were sometimes seen as dwelling places of divine beings. Mountains were where heaven and earth seemed to meet. They were places of mystery and power. But were the hills themselves sources of help? Was there some power inherent in the landscape, in the creation itself, that could provide aid? The psalm poses this question, but doesn't leave us hanging in uncertainty. Immediately, powerfully comes the answer. My help comes from the Lord who made heaven and earth, not from the hills, not from false gods worshipped on high places, not from any created thing or any power in the natural world. Help comes from the Lord, from Yahweh, from the God who revealed himself to Moses, who brought Israel out of Egypt, who made covenant with his people, from the God who is not confined to any one place, not limited to any single mountain or hill, but who is the creator of all things, who made heaven and earth. This simple phrase is packed with meaning. It establishes God's credentials, if you will. He made the hills that the traveller is looking at. He made the wilderness through which the path runs. He made the sun that beats down and the stars that come out at night. He made the earth beneath the pilgrim's feet and the sky stretching overhead. All of it, all of creation, comes from his hand. And if he made it all, then he has authority over it all. The dangers of the road, whether from bandits or wild animals, from heat or exhaustion, none of these are beyond his control. The challenges ahead, the hills yet to be climbed, the valleys to be crossed, the miles still remaining. He who created the very terrain knows every inch of it, every difficulty, every danger. But there's something else woven into this phrase, something that would have resonated deeply with the ancient Israelites. When the psalm identifies God as the one who made heaven and earth, it's drawing a clear distinction between the God of Israel and the gods of the surrounding nations. In the ancient world, different gods were thought to have jurisdiction over different spheres. There might be a god of the sea, a god of the storm, a goddess of fertility, a god of the underworld. If you needed help with crops, you appealed to one deity. If you were sailing and needed calm seas, you appealed to another. The divine realm was fragmented, parcelled out among countless deities, each with their own limited domain and their own often conflicting agendas. But the God of Israel, He made it all. He's not a God of just the mountains, while another God rules the valleys. He's not a God of daytime who loses power when night falls. He's not confined to one nation or one territory. He made heaven, the dwelling place of the divine, the realm of the spiritual, the heights above. And He made earth, the realm of humanity, the physical world we inhabit, the ground beneath our feet, all of it, visible and invisible, material and immaterial, comes from Him. This means there's nowhere you can go that's beyond His jurisdiction, no situation you can find yourself in that's outside His authority, no problem you can face that's beyond His ability to address. He's not a specialist deity with limited areas of expertise. He's the creator of all things, and therefore the Lord of all things. Think about what this meant for a pilgrim on that ancient road. If they were traveling through the territory of a foreign nation, some might have worried, is our God powerful here? Does He have authority in this place? But the answer thunders back. He made it. He made this land, that land, all lands. He made the mountains of Israel and the plains of Mesopotamia and the deserts of Arabia. There is no away where God is not present, no foreign soil where He lacks power. Or consider a pilgrim facing the darkness of night, when shadows seem to harbour threats, when the imagination could populate every sound with danger. In some ancient religions, the gods of light and day were thought to battle with gods of darkness and night, with the outcome uncertain. But the God of Israel, He made both the light and the darkness. He set the sun and moon and stars in their courses. The night belongs to Him as much as the day. There are no rival powers contending for control. It's all His creation, all under His sovereign rule. This is why the psalmist can move so confidently from identifying where help comes from to describing that help in such comprehensive terms. Because the helper is not limited, not partial, not struggling against equal or superior forces. The helper is the maker of heaven and earth, and therefore His help is complete. His protection is total. His care is absolute. When you understand this, it changes how you pray. You're not trying to convince a reluctant deity to pay attention to your small concerns. You're not competing with other petitioners for the attention of a God with limited resources. You're bringing your needs to the one who made you, who knows you intimately, who has the power to help and the love that makes Him want to help. When you grasp this, it transforms how you face your fears. Whatever you're afraid of, whether it's a concrete danger or a nameless dread, it exists within God's creation. He made the very substance of which it's composed. He set the limits of its power. It cannot act beyond what he permits. And he, the maker of all things, has identified himself as your helper, your keeper, your guardian. This is the foundation on which all the rest of the psalm builds. This is why the promises that follow can be so sweeping, so comprehensive, so confident, because the one making these promises is not a minor deity with limited power. He is the creator of all that exists, the Lord of heaven and earth, the God beside whom there is no other. This is where help comes from, not from our own strength, though we must certainly keep putting one foot in front of the other, not from created things, though we're thankful for every spring of water and every patch of shade, not from false gods or empty rituals. Our help comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth, the one who is both powerful enough to create all things and personal enough to care about one weary traveller on a dusty road, the God who keeps. Understanding Shammah. As we move deeper into this psalm, we're going to encounter a word again and again. It's a Hebrew word, Shammah, and it appears 6 times in these 8 short verses. English translations render it in various ways: keep, keeper, guard, protect, preserve, watch over. But all of these English words are trying to capture something of what Shammah means. Let's take a moment to really understand this word, because it's central to everything this psalm is telling us about God. Shammah, at its root, means to hedge about, to surround, to protect. Picture a shepherd building a thorny hedge around the pen where his flock will spend the night. The thorns keep predators out. The enclosure keeps the sheep safely in. That's Shammah, the creation of a protective boundary, a guarding presence. But Shammah is more than just building a wall and walking away. It carries the idea of active watching, constant vigilance. A shomer, someone who does the action of Shammah, is a watchman. In ancient cities, the shomer would be stationed on the city walls or at the gates. While the city slept, the shomer stayed awake, eyes scanning the darkness for any sign of danger, any approaching threat. The shomer's job was to see danger coming and raise the alarm, to keep watch so that others could rest in peace. Think of how essential this role was. A city without a watchman was a city vulnerable to attack. An unguarded gate was an open invitation to enemies. The safety, the very survival of the community depended on faithful shomers who would not sleep at their posts, who would not be distracted from their duty, who would remain alert and attentive through all the watches of the night. In agricultural settings, shomers guarded the fields and vineyards. During harvest time especially, when the crops were ripe and vulnerable, someone had to keep watch. Wild animals would love to raid a field of grain or feast on ripe grapes. Birds would descend in flocks to eat the seed just planted. Even human thieves might try to steal the harvest. So a shomer would be posted, often on a raised platform or watchtower, to keep constant watch over the fields. The community's food supply, their livelihood for the coming year, depended on the shomer's vigilance. The word also carried connotations of treasuring, of caring for something precious. You shamar something that matters to you. A merchant shamars his valuable goods. A king shamars his treasure. The idea isn't just protection from threats, but preservation of something valued. And beautifully, shamar is the word used in Genesis for what Adam was to do in the garden. God placed Adam in Eden to work it and to shamar it, to keep it, to watch over it, to guard and preserve this precious place. There's intimacy in that word, a sense of loving care and attention. So when Psalm 121 tells us again and again that the Lord shamars his people, that he is our shomer, our keeper, our guardian, it's painting a rich picture. God is not distant or detached. He's not uninvolved in our lives, not unconcerned with the details of our journey. He is actively watching over us, surrounding us with his protective presence, guarding us as one guards what is most precious, keeping us as a faithful watchman keeps the city, preserving us with constant, vigilant care. 6 times this word appears in 8 verses. 6 times the psalm emphasizes, you are being kept, you are being watched over, you are being guarded, you have a shomer, and he is utterly faithful. He who keeps you will not slumber. The psalm continues, he will not let your foot be moved, he who keeps you will not slumber. Behold, he who keeps Israel will neither slumber nor sleep. Here we see shamar in action, the keeping, the guarding, the watching over. It's directed specifically toward the traveller's immediate practical need. He will not let your foot be moved. Think about walking on those ancient paths. The way was often rocky, uneven, loose stones could shift underfoot. The edge of a cliff might crumble. One wrong step could mean a twisted ankle, a fall, an injury that would make continuing the journey impossible. For a traveller, keeping one's footing was essential. It wasn't a metaphor, it was a daily, practical necessity. The psalm promises that God, the faithful keeper, watches over even this, each step, each placement of the foot. He who keeps you is attentive to it. You won't be allowed to slip, to fall, to stumble in a way that will leave you unable to continue. He's watching your path with the care of one who values every detail. But then the psalm widens the focus. It's not just he who keeps you, it's he who keeps Israel. This personal care is also corporate. God is watching over the whole community, the whole people. Every traveller on every road, every family making their pilgrimage, every individual who lifts their eyes to the hills, all are under the watchful eye of the Keeper of Israel. And here's where the psalm makes a stunning claim, especially for the ancient world. He will neither slumber nor sleep. In the religions surrounding Israel, the gods were often portrayed as sleeping. There were myths about having to wake the gods, about their periods of inattention when they weren't concerned with earthly affairs. Some deities had to be roused with loud music or elaborate rituals. Others simply weren't interested in the everyday concerns of mere mortals. But the God of Israel, he never sleeps. He doesn't need sleep. He's not like a human watchman who struggles to stay awake through the long hours of the night, whose eyelids grow heavy, who might doze at his post. God is eternally vigilant, constantly attentive, never, ever distracted or inattentive. There's such comfort in this. When you lie down to sleep tonight, God is awake, watching over you. When worries creep in during the dark hours, when anxieties seem overwhelming, when the world feels threatening, God is not asleep. He's not unaware. He's not going to be caught off guard by whatever tomorrow brings. The psalm even uses two different words, slumber and sleep, just to emphasize the point. He won't even doze off for a moment. There is no moment, no sliver of time, no fraction of a second when God's attention wavers, when his watchful care ceases, when you are left unguarded. Can you feel the weight of that promise settling over you like a warm blanket? The keeper of Israel, the one who made heaven and earth, the God of all power and all knowledge. He is watching over you right now, this very moment, and he will continue watching over you through the night, through tomorrow, through every moment of your life. He who keeps you will not slumber. The Lord is your keeper. The Lord is your keeper. The Lord is your shade at your right hand. Here, the psalm becomes even more personal, more intimate. Not just he who keeps Israel, but your keeper, your personal guardian, your individual watchman. Yes, he cares for all his people, but that doesn't mean his care for you is any less particular, any less attentive. You matter to him specifically, personally, individually. And then this beautiful image, the Lord is your shade at your right hand. In the Middle Eastern world, shade isn't just pleasant, it's essential. The sun there is fierce, particularly in the wilderness, particularly on those rocky paths where there are no trees, no shelter from its intensity. Ancient travelers knew the danger of sun exposure, not just discomfort but actual harm, what we would call heat stroke or sun poisoning. They knew that too much time in direct sunlight could lead to exhaustion, confusion, even death. Shade, therefore, wasn't a luxury. It was a necessity, and finding shade in those barren hills wasn't always easy. When you did find it, the shadow of a large boulder, a rare tree, an overhanging cliff, you treasured it, you rested in it, you let it restore you. The psalm says God himself is your shade, Not that he provides shade, though that's also true, but that he himself is the shade. He's that close to you, that intimately present, that personally involved in your well-being. Like a parent holding an umbrella over a child, like a friend stepping between you and the sun. That's how near God is. At your right hand. In Hebrew culture, the right hand was the place of honor, of strength, of protection. A warrior kept his shield on his left arm and his sword in his right hand. To have someone at your right hand meant they were in position to help you, to defend you, to strengthen you. And here is God himself, positioned at your right hand, so close you could reach out and touch him if he had physical form, so near that his presence is like shade from the burning sun. Think about how a shadow works. It's not separate from you. Where you go, it goes. When you move, it moves. It's constantly with you, inseparable. That's the image here. God's presence, his protective care, is as close to you as your own shadow, as inseparable from you as your shadow on a sunny day. The sun shall not strike you by day, nor the moon by night. We understand the danger of the sun, but the moon, that seems strange to us. We know the moon doesn't produce heat, can't cause sunburn or heat stroke. So what does this mean? In the most ancient world, there were beliefs about the harmful effects of moonlight. We can hear echoes of this in our word lunatic, which comes from the Latin word for moon. While we now know these beliefs weren't scientifically accurate, the imagery here works on another level. It's about completeness, about comprehensiveness, by day and by night, sun and moon, the two great lights that God placed in the heavens at creation, from the moment the sun rises until it sets, and then through all the hours of darkness until it rises again. At all times, in all conditions, you are under God's protection. There is no time when you are unguarded. There is no moment when you're on your own. Day and night, light and darkness, seen and unseen. God's care covers it all, preserved from all evil. The Lord will keep you from all evil. He will keep your life. Here's where we need to pause and wrestle with something profound. The Lord will keep you from all evil. It's such a sweeping promise, such a comprehensive statement. And yet we know, we've experienced, we've witnessed that evil does touch the lives of God's people. Suffering happens, tragedy strikes, bad things happen to good people, as the saying goes. So what does this promise mean? Is it false comfort? Is the psalmist making a claim that reality doesn't support? Not if we understand what's really being promised here. The Hebrew word translated keep from can mean several things. It can mean to keep someone away from something, to prevent contact, but it can also mean to keep someone safe while they pass through something, to guard and preserve them in the midst of danger. Think of the children of Israel leaving Egypt, the 10th plague. The death of the firstborn was certainly evil, but the Israelites weren't kept away from that night. They were in Egypt when it happened. What they were kept from was being harmed by it. The destroying angel passed over their homes. They were in the midst of evil, but preserved from it, kept safe by the blood on their doorposts. Or think of Daniel's friends in the fiery furnace, or Daniel himself in the lion's den. They weren't kept from entering those places of danger, but they were kept within them. They came through unharmed. They were preserved. This is often how God's keeping works. He doesn't always remove us from difficult circumstances. He doesn't always make the road smooth or eliminate every danger, but He walks with us through the difficulty. He is present in the danger. He keeps our souls, our essential selves, safe even when our circumstances are hard. He will keep your life, or as some translations render it, He will keep your soul, your essential being, the core of who you are, the part of you that is eternal, that is absolutely safe in God's keeping. That cannot be touched by the ultimate evil. That cannot be destroyed by any earthly danger. Jesus would later tell His disciples, "Do not fear those who kill the body but cannot kill the soul. The body may suffer, life may be difficult, but the soul, the true life, the eternal self, that is kept, preserved, guarded by God Himself." This doesn't mean we won't face trials. The pilgrims singing this psalm on the way to Jerusalem might well encounter bandits, might struggle with heat and thirst, might face real dangers. Some might be hurt. Some might even die on the journey. But even then, even in the worst circumstances, there is a keeping that goes deeper than physical preservation. There is a guarding of the soul, a preservation of what ultimately matters, a safety that transcends earthly circumstances. Your going out and your coming in, the Lord will keep your going out and your coming in from this time forth and forevermore. The psalm ends with this beautiful, comprehensive benediction. Your going out and your coming in. This phrase encompasses all of life. In ancient Hebrew idiom, it meant everything you do, everywhere you go, all your activities and movements. When you leave home in the morning, that's your going out. When you return home in the evening, that's your coming in. The journey out and the journey back. The work you do and the rest you take. The adventures you embark on and the refuge you return to. Every transition, every movement, every change of location or circumstance, all of it is under God's watchful care. For the pilgrims, this had immediate literal application. They were going out from their homes to Jerusalem, and they would be coming back. Both journeys, outward and return, were covered by God's protection. They could travel with confidence, knowing that the Keeper of Israel was watching over them in both directions. but it extends beyond just physical journeys. Your going out and coming in includes all of life's transitions. Starting a new job, that's a going out. Retiring, that's a coming in. Sending a child off to school for the first time, that's a going out. Welcoming them home each day, that's a coming in. Marriage is a going out from your parents' home. Perhaps years later, caring for aging parents becomes your new going out. Life is full of these movements, these transitions, these changes, and the promise is that God's keeping doesn't stop at any threshold. He doesn't guard you only when you're at home in familiar surroundings. He doesn't watch over you only when you're doing safe, predictable things. You're going out into the unknown, into new situations, into places of risk and uncertainty. You go with God watching over you, and you're coming in, returning to familiar places, to rest, to safety, to routine. He is watching over that too, from this time forth and forevermore. This isn't temporary protection. It's not limited to just this one journey, just this one day, just this one stage of life. It's permanent. It's eternal. Starting right now, this very moment, and extending forward without end. The Lord is your keeper. Think about the scope of that promise. Today, tomorrow, next week, next year, He is keeping you through all the stages and seasons of your life, through youth and middle age and old age. He is keeping you, and even beyond this life, into eternity. He is keeping you. Death itself cannot end God's keeping. The Psalm speaks of His protection of your soul, and your soul is eternal. So even when this earthly journey ends, when you complete this particular going out and make that final coming in to your eternal home, even then God's keeping continues. He who has watched over you all your life will watch over you still. He who has been your keeper will keep you safe through death and beyond into eternal life. Can you feel the security of this promise? The absolute, unshakable safety of being kept by God, not kept from all difficulty, not preserved from every sorrow, but kept in the deepest sense, watched over, guarded, treasured, held safe by the one who made heaven and earth, and who never, ever sleeps, echoes through Scripture. This psalm didn't exist in isolation. Its themes and promises echo throughout the Bible, both backward to the stories that came before, and forward to the revelations that would come after. When the psalm speaks of God as shade, it recalls the pillar of cloud that led Israel through the wilderness after the Exodus. By day, that cloud didn't just show them the way. It provided shade from the brutal desert sun. It was a visible manifestation of God's protective presence, His keeping care made tangible. The promise of protection day and night echoes the blessings Moses pronounced over Israel. The eternal God is your dwelling place, and underneath are the everlasting arms. It resonates with David's own words in other psalms. I will both lie down in peace and sleep, for you alone, O Lord, make me dwell in safety. And when we come to the New Testament, these themes find their fulfillment in Jesus. He is the Good Shepherd who watches over his sheep. He is the one who promises, I give them eternal life, and they shall never perish. No one will snatch them out of my hand. He tells his disciples, are not 2 sparrows sold for a copper coin, and not one of them falls to the ground apart from your Father's will? But the very hairs of your head are all numbered. Do not fear, therefore. You are of more value than many sparrows. Jesus embodies the keeping care of God. When he prays for his disciples on the night before his crucifixion, he says to the Father, while I was with them in the world, I kept them in your name. Those whom you gave me I have kept, and none of them is lost, even facing death. His concern is for the keeping, the protection, the preservation of those entrusted to him. The Apostle Paul would later write, he who began a good work in you will carry it on to completion until the day of Christ Jesus. And Jude ends his letter with a beautiful benediction that echoes Psalm 121. Now to him who is able to keep you from stumbling and to present you faultless before the presence of his glory with exceeding joy. There's that word again, keep. God is able to keep you, to guard you, to preserve you, to bring you safely home. Living in the reality of God's keeping. So what does all this mean for us tonight as we rest in these ancient words? It means we can truly rest. We can let go of that anxious vigilance that so often characterizes our lives. We don't have to be constantly on guard, constantly worried, constantly trying to anticipate and prevent every possible danger. We have a keeper, and he doesn't sleep. We can sleep because he doesn't. Think about how much energy we expend trying to control everything, trying to make sure nothing goes wrong, trying to protect ourselves and those we love from every possible harm. We lie awake at night, mentally rehearsing worst-case scenarios. We exhaust ourselves trying to plan for every contingency. We carry tension in our shoulders and stress in our hearts because we feel the burden of keeping everything safe, keeping everything under control. But the psalm invites us to transfer that burden, not to become careless or irresponsible. We still take reasonable precautions. We still make wise choices. We still do our part. But the ultimate responsibility for our safety, for our well-being, for our future, that rests with God. He is the keeper. He is the one who watches. He is the guardian who never sleeps. We can lay down our anxious vigilance because he maintains his faithful watch. It means we can face tomorrow with confidence. We don't know what the road ahead holds. We can't see around the next bend, over the next hill, into the next season of life. But we know who holds tomorrow. We know who is watching over us. We know that every step we take, He is there, guarding our path, keeping our feet from stumbling. Maybe you're facing something difficult tomorrow, a hard conversation, a medical appointment that has you worried, a challenge at work that seems overwhelming, a relationship that's strained and you don't know how to fix it. Whatever it is, you don't go into it alone. You don't go unguarded. You go with the Keeper of Israel watching over you, with the Maker of heaven and earth as your shade at your right hand. The psalm doesn't promise that difficult things won't happen, but it promises that when they do happen, you won't face them alone. It promises that there are resources available to you beyond your own strength. It promises that you have a helper, and that helper is not limited by the circumstances that limit you. He made the circumstances. He can work through them, around them, in spite of them, to accomplish His purposes and care for His own. It means we can lift our eyes above our circumstances. When we look at the hills ahead, the challenges we face, the obstacles in our path, the difficulties looming in our future, we can ask that ancient question, from where does my help come? And we can answer with confidence, my help comes from the Lord who made heaven and earth, not from our own cleverness or strength, though we exercise both, not from the help of others, though we gratefully receive it when offered, not from favourable circumstances or lucky breaks. Our ultimate help, our real security, our true safety comes from God. He is our keeper. He is our shade. He is the one who watches over us day and night, who preserves us from evil, who guards our going out and our coming in. This shift in perspective is profound. Instead of looking at our problems and then looking at our resources and feeling overwhelmed by the gap, we look at our problems and then look to God and remember that He is bigger than any challenge we face. Instead of measuring the height of the hills by our own limited strength, we measure them against the power of the one who made the hills in the first place. Instead of asking, "Can I handle this?" we ask, "What will God do with this?" It changes how we pray too. When we're facing difficulty, the temptation is to pray desperate prayers. God, you have to fix this. God, you have to make this go away. God, if you don't do something, I don't know what I'll do. These prayers come from a place of feeling alone, of feeling like everything depends on us and our ability to convince God to act. But when we've internalized the truth of Psalm 121, our prayers take on a different tone. We still bring our needs, our fears, our requests to God, but we bring them with confidence, not desperation. With trust, not bargaining, we say, Lord, you are my keeper. You're watching over me. I don't understand what's happening, but I trust your care. I don't see how this will work out, but I know you see what I can't see. I'm afraid, but I'm choosing to rest in your protection. I'm walking into tomorrow, and I'm doing it trusting that you're going before me and beside me and behind me, guarding my going out and my coming in. This doesn't mean life will be easy. The ancient pilgrims still had to walk the road. Their feet still got dusty. Their legs still grew weary. The sun still beat down, and the miles still had to be covered. But they walked with confidence, singing this song, reminding themselves and each other that they were not alone, that they were being watched over, that they would arrive safely because the Lord was their keeper. And so can we. We still have to walk through our days. We still face real challenges and genuine difficulties. We still experience sorrow and pain and loss, but we walk as people who are being kept. We face our challenges as those who are being guarded. We endure our sorrows as ones who are being preserved. And we can do all this with a peace that surpasses understanding, because we know that underneath are the everlasting arms, that around us is the constant presence of the one who never sleeps. Let me share something about how this works in practice. In the everyday moments of life, it's easy to read these grand promises and think they only apply to major crises, to life-threatening dangers, to big dramatic moments. But God's keeping is just as real in the mundane moments, in the routine challenges, in the everyday fears that nibble at the edges of our peace. You wake up in the middle of the night and your mind immediately starts racing with worries about finances, about whether you can make the bills this month. That's when you can remember, the Lord is my keeper. He will not let my foot slip. He who keeps me will not slumber. He's awake in this moment. He sees your worry. He knows your needs, and he's not anxious about them. He's your keeper, watching over you. You're driving to work and you feel that familiar tightness in your chest as you think about the difficult project you're working on, the deadline approaching, the fear that you won't be able to deliver what's expected. That's when you can remember, my help comes from the Lord, who made heaven and earth. The skills you have, He gave them. The intelligence you're using, He created it. The challenge you're facing, He's bigger than it. You're not doing this alone. You're having a hard conversation with your child, and you feel completely inadequate to handle the situation, completely unsure of the right words to say or the right way to respond. That's when you can remember, the Lord is your shade at your right hand. He's that close. He's right there with you in that moment, in that conversation. You can silently cry out to Him for wisdom, for patience, for love, and trust that He hears and helps. You're sitting in a doctor's office waiting for test results, and fear is threatening to overwhelm you. That's when you can remember. The Lord will keep you from all evil. He will keep your life. Whatever those results show, you are held by the one who has already won the ultimate victory over death. Your life, your true life, your eternal soul is safe in its keeping. These everyday moments of applying God's keeping care. This is where the psalm becomes not just beautiful poetry, but practical reality. This is where we learn what it means to live as people who are being watched over, guarded, kept by the faithful God. Rest in the keeper's care. And now, as we draw toward the close of our time together, I want to invite you to sink even more deeply into rest. Let these truths we've been exploring settle over you like a soft blanket. Let them work their way into your heart, into the deep places where worry lives, where fear makes its home. You are being kept. Right now, this very moment, the Lord is watching over you. He sees you. He knows you. He cares for you. Every breath you're taking, He is aware of it. Every concern that flickers through your mind, He already knows about it. Every tomorrow you're wondering about, He's already there, preparing the way, ready to meet you when you arrive. Think about the pilgrims who first sang this psalm. Picture them at the end of a long day's journey, sitting around their campfires as darkness settled over the hills. They were tired, yes, but they were peaceful. They had walked all day, and they had more walking ahead of them. But they could rest tonight because they knew they were being kept. They could close their eyes in sleep because they knew the Lord was awake, watching, guarding, and that same reality is yours tonight. You've walked through your own journey today, perhaps not over physical hills, but through the landscape of your life, with its own challenges and difficulties. You've made it to evening. You've reached this place of rest, and now you can sleep, really sleep, because the Lord who kept those ancient pilgrims is keeping you too. You're going out and you're coming in, all of it, all of life, all your days and all your ways. It's covered, it's watched over, it's kept. You don't have to figure it all out tonight. You don't have to solve every problem or plan for every contingency. You can rest. You can sleep, because He who keeps you will not slumber. Feel the weight of your body sinking into the bed. Notice how the mattress supports you, how it holds you up. You're not having to hold yourself up. You can let go. You can surrender to gravity and to rest. In the same way, you can let go of the burden of keeping yourself safe, of holding everything together. God has that burden. He is your support. He is what holds you up. He is the one doing the keeping. Feel the softness of your pillow beneath your head. Feel how it cushions you, how it makes you comfortable. God's care is like that, gentle, supporting, comforting. He doesn't hold you roughly or impatiently. He holds you as tenderly as this pillow holds your head. Feel your muscles relaxing, letting go, releasing the tension of the day. Your shoulders dropping away from your ears, your jaw unclenching, your hands opening, no longer gripping and grasping, your whole body learning to rest, to let go, to be held. And as you feel all of this physical rest, let your soul rest too. Let your heart rest. Let your mind rest. You are safe. You are kept. You are watched over by the one who made heaven and earth. The sun will not strike you by day, nor the moon by night. Through all the hours of darkness, through all the uncertainties of tomorrow, through every season that lies ahead, the Lord is your keeper. The Lord is your shade at your right hand. The Lord will preserve you from all evil. He will preserve your soul. And when you wake, when morning comes and a new day begins, you will go out under his watchful care. And when evening returns and you come back to rest, he will still be watching over you from this time forth and forevermore, without end, without ceasing, forever and always. You are being kept. So sleep now, sleep in peace, sleep in safety, sleep in the sure and certain knowledge that you are not alone, that you are not unguarded, that you are held in the everlasting arms of the one who loves you. More than you can imagine, the Lord is keeping you. The Lord will keep you. The Lord keeps you now and always. A gentle invitation before I close. I want to leave you with a gentle invitation. If this message of God's keeping care has brought comfort to your heart tonight, if you'd like to continue exploring God's Word in this peaceful, restful way, I hope you'll subscribe to Bible's Sleepy Stories. We're here several times a week with new stories, new passages, new opportunities to let the ancient words of Scripture soothe your soul and guide you into peaceful rest. You might also consider liking this video. It helps others who are seeking peace and rest to find these stories. It's a simple thing, just a click, but it helps spread this message of God's care to others who need to hear it as much as you did tonight. And perhaps when you wake tomorrow, you might share this with someone you care about, someone who's facing a difficult journey, someone who's worried about tomorrow, someone who needs to hear that they have a keeper and he never sleeps. Share this gift of rest with them, but for now, just rest. Let the words of Psalm 121 wash over you one more time. I lift up my eyes to the hills. From where does my help come? My help comes from the Lord, who made heaven and earth. He will not let your foot be moved. He who keeps you will not slumber. Behold, He who keeps Israel will neither slumber nor sleep. The Lord is your keeper. The Lord is your shade at your right hand. The sun shall not strike you by day, nor the moon by night. The Lord will keep you from all evil. He will keep your life. The Lord will keep your going out and your coming in from this time forth and forevermore. You are kept. You are loved. Rest now, dear one, in the care of your faithful keeper. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May his face shine upon you. May he give you peace tonight and always. Amen.